My name is David Wallace. I was a dean and the senior teacher at One Spirit for some 2 decades. Um, and with delight, I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Dr. Courtney Bryant. Courtney has joined One Spirit as the CEO. She came on last year, but many of us haven't had an opportunity to really get to know her. And we've just met, so I thought it would be lovely to introduce her and to just get a little sense of who she is and what she's got in mind for our organization. Courtney,
Mm.
welcome.
Thank you so much, David. It's great to be here. Welcome,
Good.
everybody. Hello.
So, I literally know very little about you except that you've stepped into this big job and that we are so glad you're here. Uh, would would it be all right just to talk a little bit about your life, where you grew up, how you were formed, what's been important to you? Yeah.
Yeah, wow, what a huge question, but a great one. I am a New Yorker.
Ah,
I was born in the Bronx in Albert Einstein Hospital and moved to the suburbs, Mount Vernon to be specific, when I was 5. I come from a very small, close-knit family that has always been deeply spiritual, and our spirituality of choice has been Christianity. And I'm very intentional about saying spiritual rather than religious because in my experience, people who are religious are people who go to church or go to temple or do their thing on a particular day of the week and then sort of carry out life any old kind of way in the in between. And that was very much not the way that I grew up. Um, our relationship with God, which would be the language that we would use,
yes.
was incredibly important to our lives, and we centered our life, the way that we operate in the world and the way that we treat people based on that spirituality, which ultimately is a spirituality of servanthood. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah.
An active church life is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Very much active church life. In fact, so active, I thought that my parents owned the church when I was a kid. Very
Oh,
active church life. But again, that spirituality permeated through all of the things that we
yeah.
did. My mom was a nurse. We had people, I mean, like I came from the kind of family where like if we had it to give, you had one of them. If you needed two, then you might take half of mine and half of my dad's. But for some reason, it was always a very service-oriented family because that was the way that we understood worshiping God. We worship God by loving others.
Gosh. It's refreshing to hear that sort of living servitude, which is not a language in the common tongue right now.
Tell
There's
me
so
about
little
it.
talk. I mean, in our community, we understand service, but in the greater community, it's a lost cause.
Mhm.
And did you stayed in New York always? Did you went to school in the
So
city or?
So I went to school. I went to college at University of Maryland. So I spent some time in the Maryland, DC area. I went to seminary at Duke. So I was in North Carolina for a
Yeah.
season. And then ultimately ended up doing a PhD in religion, ethics, and society at Vanderbilt University. So that took me to Nashville, Tennessee. I returned to New York in 2018 immediately after graduating and taught religion and ethics at Manhattan College for about 6 years. And then I feel like the rug sort of was pulled out from under me. I did all of the things that everyone told me to do to get a PhD. I wrote the book. Got the glowing recommendations and evaluations. And then my school announced that it was going to be suspending its tenure process
Yeah.
indefinitely.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because, I was definitely moved by passion to get my PhD, but I was certainly enticed by the certainty, if you will, of tenure. And so with that gone, it sent me reeling a bit and trying to understand, well, like, what was my next move? And how could I live out my passion for teaching, for justice, for all things about the sacred? One of the things I love about One Spirit is how it amplifies consciousness of the sacred. Um, and so I had to imagine what my life would be if I wasn't teaching. I was unwilling to sort of wrestle with academia anymore. I had already had a background in nonprofit management, diversity and inclusion, all kinds of different positions. Actually, I've directed a youth development program. And so when all of these skills sort of came together one day, I saw a listing for One Spirit looking for a co-CEO. As I was preparing the letter, I realized that there were so many different avenues of my life that then came together, like it all converged. And I was like, wait, hold on a moment. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can raise money, I can develop programs, I've managed people. And it felt like the right thing to do. I was incredibly not only inspired, but curious about an organization that was really into the collaborative process of us bringing all of our gifts to the table, where it wasn't hierarchical, but that we could come together and see what emerged and what we discovered from it. That kind of thing really floats my boat. And so I interviewed for the job, and with each conversation, it just felt more and more in alignment
Mm.
with my purpose. And not only that, but the people that I met, I was just so blown away with their spiritual presence, their wisdom, their loving nature, and it felt like a really, really good fit.
One of the mantras that we've used in the school is to really try to accept and embody this phrase, you are the presence of love itself.
Mm, hmm.
And
Hmm.
that little ripple of combining the inner life and the outer life, I think is a profound part of what we're able to offer as a community. And it
Hmm.
just sounds to me, I'm glad you just said what you the way you said it, because I can hear the young one in you, uh, listening and wanting to be a vessel, and how
Yes.
that's sort of informed, and I guess, is that, am I right in assuming that's how you became an educator,
Man. Oh,
to teach
man.
that, which, yeah.
Yes. So I come alive when I learn new things. I feel empowered when I learn new things. And I've always been super smart. And I've had parents who have put me in places where that intelligence has constantly been cultivated. I am such a fan of Thomas Aquinas and this notion of loving God. With our minds. And so anytime I learned something, I always wanted to teach someone else. It's almost as if the process of learning was not complete for me until I shared what I'd learned with
Yes.
someone else. So in that way, I think I have always innately been a teacher. But I think it's also like the sharing of knowledge is also a form of love and a form of service. If I had knowledge that I thought made me better,
Mm,
or gave me something, some piece of joy, some piece of love, I always want to share it with others so that they too can be empowered.
mm,
And in that way, yes, it f- you feel like a vessel, right?
right.
Because you're a vessel of love, you're a vessel of knowledge, you're a vessel of wisdom, and you get to be a vessel of power as well.
All right, so then let's look at, you know, the time and situation that we're in, both as a
Yeah.
culture and also as an institution. This, I have to say, Courtney, it really is a time of uncertainty. I mean, it's been a time when spirit's been had sort of had the rug thrown out from under its feet. The country certainly is being rocked by uh,
Mhm.
political um, and greed driven methodology, and
Mm,
here you are. I mean, you're going to navigate the ship, so to speak.
mhm,
So what?
mhm.
How do we get through? How do you get through an uncertain time?
Wow.
Just a little question.
Just a tiny question. This has been such an uncertain time, as you've stated, for all of the macro reasons, but then all the micro reasons that affect me as an individual. And I almost feel as though this season of my life has been about facing uncertainty and facing the fear of uncertainty, and deciding, like, what do you trust? In my tradition, we'd say, "Whose report will you believe?" Right?
Mm,
Right? So are we to
mm,
believe that life is on this negative trajectory where there's no hope and there's nothing that we can do? Or do we believe and do we have some optimism about a greater sense of future, perhaps? Or is there value in the lessons that come from the uncertainty and the fight that you put forward, regardless of what the outcome might be? Now, I certainly am hoping for and see a very positive future for One Spirit. But I do think that in the midst of grappling with that uncertainty, that there are all kinds of discoveries that are not accessible when everything is in place and we have all we need. In fact, I once met a Ugandan priest in my time of Uganda, and he said, "The hand of the hand of God begins where the hand of man ends."
mm.
And it's also essentially what he's saying is that when we are too resourced, when we know, oh, well, we've got it, that there's no reason to trust. There's no reason to have faith. There's no reason to lean in because everything's perfect and everything's comfortable. And so I do wonder what the season of discomfort is teaching us as individuals. I know that as an organization, it's teaching us to be shrewd. It's teaching us to be more judicious in our decision making. It's teaching us to be incredibly creative, right? Because we've got to think outside of the box for what comes next. And it's also teaching us to be incredibly relational because we know that we're stronger together. So I can fight all kinds of battles on my own, but I'm stronger when I recognize that there is sacred or spiritual help. And then I'm all the more empowered and all the more strong when I join arms with those around me and we battle it together. And that is what I've seen in the past 6 weeks at One Spirit. We went from a place where we were so uncertain about our financial situation and what we should do and grappling with transparency, um, to a place where we have come together as a community dealing with what is. And in 6 weeks, we were able to make $100,000. We did on our own because of our gifts, because of our treasure, because of our passion for the organization. That what we're doing is incredibly relevant. And we know this because we have people on the waiting list like, okay, we know that you're going to be paused for a second, but please let us know what is the next thing. So even in the midst of
Yes.
sitting with ourselves, there is still an interest from the outside world for what One Spirit can give and what it can offer. And so we want to really position ourselves to be really shrewd about presenting something that is incredibly engaging, incredibly relevant, and incredibly accessible. But that means coming together as a community to decide what that looks like, how it's delivered, and how we continue to keep ourselves solvent in this really beautiful, for lack of a better word, independent way, right? Like we came together as a community and kept going in a moment where we thought we'd have to stop. What do we do with this momentum now, right? I don't think that's for me to decide on our own or on my own. That's why I'm calling in different experts from the community. I'm also calling in ideas. So, in fact, on January 15th, we're going to be launching an RFP process, a request for proposals process, where we're going to be talking about the various categories of innovation and development that we're looking into and ask for ideas from the community to see if we can pull different aspects or a tapestry of things to present as a whole. And in so doing, we'll be presenting the newest iteration of One Spirit, not letting go of the amazing things that we have from the past, not letting go of seminary, not letting go of that kind of spiritual wisdom and interspiritual methodology that sets us apart, not letting go of interspiritual counseling and companioning and the ways that that can function as a professional development arm of One Spirit, but also looking deeper and saying, well, what kind of digital products can we offer? What kinds of ways can we allow for people what kinds of ways can we guide people in a more independent way that allows them perhaps to gather less or in person? There are all kinds of opportunities. And so right now we need to pull together as a community. We need to go through the ideas that we have. And then we need to discern which are the ones that rise to the top, which are the ones that work together, what are the ones that move us closer to our ultimate mission, which is to amplify a consciousness of the sacred, to amplify our interconnected nature of, or the interconnected nature of all life. And one of the things that's really emerging for me lately is to take those fundamental truths and predicate our servanthood and our leadership and our care based on these values.
Beautifully said, Courtney.
Thank
And
you.
if you haven't heard it from enough people, let me just be the voice and the face and the voice of so many who say welcome and thank you and God bless you, and we're here to help. So
Blessings to you,
thank you.
David. I really,
Thank you
really
for this
appreciate
time
it.
today. It's really sweet to see you.
It has been. Thank you.
Thank you.